Good morning and welcome to a very special interview show of the Prode. Today, we turn our focus to one of the most consequential geopolitical developments of our time, Estonia's unwavering and strategic support for Ukraine in the wake of Russia's full-scale invasion in Feb 2022. This is not merely a story of solidarity, it's a case study principled in foreign policy under pressure. Estonia, a small state with its own history of occupation, has emerged as one of the Ukraine's most consistent and forward-leaning allies. From military assistance and robust advocacy for EU sanctions to shaping NATO's deterrence posture and supporting Ukraine's governance and reconstruction efforts, Estonia has positioned itself at the forefront of Europe's response. In this conversation, we'll unpack the policy logic behind Estonia's approach, what drives its urgency, clarity, and commitment, and how does Tallinn view Ukraine's path toward Euro integration. Joining us today is a policymaker who was at the very center of Europe's early response to the war. Eva-Maria Liimets served as Estonia's Minister of Foreign Affairs under Prime Minister Kaja Kallas, where she helped shape and coordinate Estonia's diplomatic and strategic approach during some of the most uncertain and defining moments of the conflict. In May 2022, at a time when much of the international community was still assessing the risk, she traveled to Kyiv alongside her counterparts from Latvia and Lithuania, one of the first high-level European visits to Ukraine following the invasion. That visit was more than symbolic. It underscored a clear message of commitment, resolve, and regional leadership in the face of aggression. Minister, it's a pleasure to have you here with us. Thank you so much for your time.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me.
Ma'am, I would like to begin the discussion by asking that Estonia has been one of Ukraine's strongest supporters, committing a significant share of its GDP to military, humanitarian, and financial aid. What key strategic and policy factors have driven this high level of commitment?
This is a very natural policy for Estonia, and mostly, of course, because of our geographic location and because of our history. This is absolutely true that from the very beginning, Estonia has actively supported Ukraine. And when I say from the very beginning, then actually I refer back to already to the year 2014, when the first Russia's aggression against Ukraine took place. And it was very natural for us to support Ukraine also in 2021, for example, when Russia started to build up its troops next to the Ukrainian border. And so our actions have followed this policy till today.
Yeah. So, in May 2022, you yourself visited Kyiv with the foreign ministers of Latvia and Lithuania, among the first European leaders to visit after the full-scale invasion. So, how did this visit influence Estonia's diplomatic engagement and policy towards Ukraine? And what are some of your key takeaways from this visit?
Yes, in early May in 2022, me together with Latvian and Lithuanian foreign ministers, we visited Kyiv to finish our interrupted journey to Kyiv, which our joint visit to Kyiv had to take place on the second part of February. But then the war escalated, and so we had to leave the country without our proper meetings. So we saw this visit to Kyiv as a strategic support to Ukraine in this very difficult situation. And if we recall what had happened just before the 6th of May, just before our visit to Kyiv, then we of course have to recall not only the tragic activities of war, but also, for example, Bucha tragedy, which was a very heavy violation of human rights of civilian population of Ukraine. So we were there to show our support to Ukraine, but also, of course, to discuss what were the needs of Ukrainians and how the international community could support Ukraine, but also to pay more attention to war crimes.
Yeah, so Estonia has strongly advocated for like tougher EU sanctions on Russia and faster EU integration for Ukraine. How do you evaluate the effectiveness of these measures so far, and what further steps are needed at the EU level according to your analysis?
First, I should emphasize that the main objective of these sanctions has always been to help to end this war so that Russia would stop bombing Ukraine and would withdraw its troops from Ukraine because we strongly believe that the borders should not be changed by force. And this is something that is emphasized in the UN Charter. And therefore, we believe that all responsible members of the international community should follow this international law. And one of the tools that we have, one of the peaceful tools that we have in the international community, they are sanctions. So therefore, we think that it is important to implement sanctions towards the countries who are aggressive towards their neighbors. And we also believe that they are useful. And for example, those sanctions that the EU has had against Russia, they have helped to diminish the financial inflow to Russia. They have also helped to diminish technological growth in Russia. And with all those steps, Russia has um, been weaker in attacking Ukraine. Of course, at the same time, I have to admit that it has not been enough. We still see war ongoing. We still see Russia bombing actively Ukraine, including its capital. So, unfortunately, international community definitely should do more to pressure Russia to end the war.
Yeah, talking about NATO, so within NATO, Estonia has pushed for stronger deterrence on the eastern flank. How has the war in Ukraine shaped Estonia's security policy priorities and contributions inside the alliance?
Estonia is a country which geographically borders Russia, and as we just spoke about the Russia's aggression towards one of its neighbors, we also need to recall from the history that in 2008 Russia attacked Georgia. So, based of these historic facts, of course, for Estonia is very important to have a strong deterrence in our soil so that we would feel safe ourselves, so that we would not need to be worried about Russia's possible aggression. And here I think that um, it's really important to have also allied forces here in Estonia, and we have actively working towards close relationship with allies, and we are very thankful for also the United Kingdom for having its forces here. And since this full-scale war in Ukraine, we immediately increased our own percentage to the defense. I mean, percentage of the GDP to defense to increase to strengthen our military. Then also we suggested some of the policy recommendations for NATO so that the deterrence here in the eastern flank would be stronger. And I think that when we're speaking at the moment in 2026, many of these policy recommendations have been implemented in NATO, and also Estonia's own percentage to the defense is already more than 5%. So we really actively contribute ourselves to our defense.
Yeah, you talked about security of Estonia. So Estonia has been vocal about the broader implications of Russia's action for European security. How does Estonia assess the risk of future aggression beyond Ukraine, particularly in the Baltic region? Do you think Russia can push for such an escalation?
We believe that Russia is not interested in attacking NATO because NATO is a strong alliance, and we are quite confident that this kind of attack is not foreseeable. What we see is that Russia is interested in sabotaging its neighborhood, and therefore we believe that strong deterrence of the eastern flank is really crucial today and also in the future. And I think here it is also appropriate to recall the some of the conclusions of the NATO summits, where it's always in last summits it's always been mentioned that Russia is the biggest threat for transatlantic security. So we keep it in mind, and we think that NATO has to be ready to face this threat.
Yeah, coming to history, Estonia's own experience of Soviet occupation deeply shapes its foreign policy. So, how has this historical context translated into concrete decisions supporting Ukraine since 2014 and also 2022?
This is absolutely true that Estonia has very a sad history because of Russia's and the Soviet occupation, which took place during the Second World War. And I think that I think that every Estonian family has either relatives or friends who were deported to Siberia and killed either killed there or they were there for decades before they could move back to their homeland, to Estonia. And another sad part of this story is also, of course, that during some of the mass deportations in 40s, 70% of those deported people were either women or children. So this is something that we remember from our history. We have learned it from our grandparents and, of course, from the history books. And very sad is to see that. Very sad is to see that the same happens now in Ukraine. So we definitely believe that as nowadays this information is available as right away, we should also act right away. We should help civilian population. We should help Ukraine to get back their children from Russia. So we know it from our history, how painful it is, how it damages the country, the society, and the culture. And therefore, probably very naturally, we believe that it is important also to support Ukraine at the moment.
Yeah, so Estonia's development agency ESTDEV, with which you are also associated with, has actively supported Ukraine's governance reforms and digital transformation. And also, Estonia is known as one of the most digitalized countries in the world, not just in Europe. So, what are the main policy objectives of this cooperation, and how does it support Ukraine's EU accession path?
Absolutely, you are right that in addition to this political support that we give to Ukraine in many international organizations and international fora, we also try to support them with practical matters. And in our organization, in the Estonian Development Cooperation Agency, ESTEV, we have several projects with which we support Ukraine. In 2022 already, we announced that Estonia has taken patronage to support the Zhytomyr region. It is one of the regions in Ukraine, and it was the first region which was deoccupied from the Russian forces. And so we decided that we would like to support this region to reconstruct the damaged buildings and infrastructure. And also, actually, yes, it started from the reconstruction, physical reconstruction, but now over those 4 years, we have implemented many other projects, which help them to reform the society and also integrate with the European Union. And also we have very friendly relationship with many of the counties with this region. But in addition to that, of course, we cooperate closely with the central government, and we have projects which help them to reform their public institutions. For example, the Office of Police or Office of Taxation, also Office of Statistics. And another big pillar of our cooperation is related to digitalization and cybersecurity. So we truly hope that with these efforts we help Ukraine to strategically shape their country towards a more Western approach where we value democracy and rule of law, and which altogether should give better future for this country. In spite of the war, we think that Ukraine will have good opportunities to join transatlantic structures after the war ends.
Yeah, looking ahead, and I would like to conclude the discussion by asking that what are Estonia's long-term priorities for Ukraine's reconstruction, security guarantees, and integration into the EU and NATO? And what are your personal opinion on the war going on? How do you think we could reach to a place where Ukraine can feel comfortable about their situation, and also Russia could also be held accountable for their war crimes and the illegal war which they put on Ukraine?
These are very, very difficult questions altogether. So I would start by saying that Estonia is a strong supporter of Ukraine's EU integration. Estonia also has believed that European EU enlargement has been one of the most successful policies of Europe because it really has expanded the area of peace and stability, and we would like to see Ukraine joining this area of peace and stability. And also, of course, it takes some time for Estonia itself. It took 9 years from the first wish and application until we joined the EU. So definitely all those reforms take time. And with regard to security guarantees, then definitely Ukraine needs security guarantees. And once the country is ready, then I believe that it should join also NATO. I know that it is very controversial question in NATO at the moment, but this is my opinion. So I think that those countries who protect democratic values, they should be able to join NATO if they follow those principles themselves and they feel that they are attacked by others. And this is definitely, it is and should be a sovereign decision of every country which kind of security guarantees it needs.
Yeah, today's conversation has offered a clear and compelling insight into how a small state can exercise strategic clarity and moral conviction in times of profound geopolitical uncertainty. Estonia's approach to Ukraine is not reactive, it is rooted in historical memory, guided by a firm commitment to international law, and driven by a clear understanding of European security. Minister Liimets, thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for your leadership and joining here us on the Prode.
Thank you very much for having me.